What's going on, y'all? Out here gonna switch over all my batteries to Dean connectors. Um, if you're in the RC hobby, you know that all these batteries and different brands come with all type of connections. Right now I have this Red Cat Racing crawler out here. I'm gonna cut off, I don't know what connection this is. I believe it's a Tamiya, but gonna switch over all my stuff over to the Dean's connection, or what do they call it, the T connectors. Did a lot of soldering as a kid, maybe in middle school. So recently I bought this new soldering gun here from Amazon. My old soldering gun that I had way back when wasn't working properly. So it may be user error, or it might be the gun itself. So we're gonna see here. What I'm gonna do now is just kind of cut off everything and strip it. I have my soldering gun warming up right now. And the purpose of me switching everything over is just to be able to have one universal connector for all my batteries, so I don't have to go and charge this one for this particular rig and other batteries for another one. So just want to kind of keep everything universal. We have quite a few different rigs and setups. So before we get started, I'll go over the supplies that we'll need. I'm sure some of you already know how to solder and all, so just kind of follow along. But of course, what you'll need first and foremost is your soldering gun, some solder. This came with the gun that I just purchased. It's lead free. Possibly some wire strippers, and then your heat shrink. Made in China, nothing but the best here. So we'll get going here. What I remember before is you're supposed to tin your solder tip here, and also tin whatever you're going to solder. So just gonna put a little bit of solder on this here, kind of warm up the wire. And put a little bit of solder onto your wire here. And this just helps kind of get that bond going once you put it to your connectors. And I am far from an expert from this, so those of you who really know how to solder, please forgive me. This gun's already working a lot better than my old one, so let's go ahead and tin these connectors. And I have this beveled tip. The cool thing with this particular solder was it came with a few different tips, so I thought that was neat. Alrighty. So now we have solder on all 4 pieces. Before I forget, let me go ahead and get some of this heat shrink to place on there. Look for the best fitting size. I don't need anything this long, so I'm just going to cut it in half. Another item you may need is a lighter or a torch of some sort to kind of warm up this heat shrink once we're done. Now all we have to do is kind of warm up these soldering points and hopefully create that connection. I'm trying to use these alligator clips that came with the soldering gun. Alright, so the first point is connected. It doesn't look very pretty, but I think it's good. Let's get the other one connected here. I'm going to tin this wire a little bit more. There we go. Alright, even though that took me a little bit longer than probably a lot of you experts, that's a lot easier than what I was doing with my old gun. So yeah, and I cleaned the tip off on it, and I cleaned the tip off and everything on my old gun. I don't know why it wasn't working good, but got it together. Alright guys, so at this moment here is when I had one of those. At this moment, he knew he bleeped up. I realized I put on a smaller size heat shrink than I needed. For one, I had it too close to where I was soldering and it warmed up the heat shrink, so it shrunk a little. And two, the heat shrink was a little bit smaller than what I needed to go over the Deans connector. So what I'm going to do with this one is probably just use a little bit of electrical tape. As I told you guys before, I'm far from a pro at soldering. What I did was went ahead on to another battery and started that up as well. So I'll get to the point where I started heating up the heat shrink after I soldered it back up. But you guys want to make sure that the heat shrink that you're using is a decent size for both your wire and what you're soldering it to, so you don't end up like me. Just gonna use a little bit of heat from this torch here to kind of warm it up. And there you go. Like I said, I am far from a professional, but this will do the trick for me. Our next step is to go ahead and put the T connector onto our ESC. So we're going to cut this off and strip these wires as well. Make sure we check and see that this will fit over our connection points. Before my battery died, I was saying you want to connect your wires to the correct point so you don't ground out your battery when you plug it up. Okay, so after burning my fingertips, I decided to use this alligator clip and try to connect it that way. Once you see we have the soldering joints connected, we're going to go ahead and scoot the heat shrink up and heat those up. I'm going to heat one up at a time so I could get it covered pretty good. So there we have it. Our next step is just to make sure everything works. Let's go ahead and plug it up and see how it does. I don't have my transmitter on, so it's probably going to try to move around and roll, but let's see how the battery works, make sure everything is good. There we go. If I can do it, anybody can do it, because I'm far from an expert at this. This will solve a lot of your problems when you're out there. You won't be dependent on the connections that your RC uses. So there you have it, guys. Stay tuned while we go out and kind of mess around with the different RCs that we have. My youngest son, Cameron, he just celebrated his 6th birthday. I bought him an ECX Torment. It's a cool little, I believe it's an 18th scale RC made by ECX, of course, but we're gonna take that out. I have a 5th scale gas car that I'm getting ready to bring out again. And of course this crawler, as well as my Exceed Mad Torque. Plan on getting a few more to add to the collection. So please like and subscribe, and see you next time, guys.